the final part to North and South. I'm not gonna lie to you here, this part has got some serious legwork to do if this whole book is gonna rise above the level of most of the other Avatar comics, and not be mired in the same review of it's pretty fine, I guess. And there's not a lot to go off of. Last comic only really vaguely hinted at the return of Gilak and maybe an overthrowing of Hakoda from the people closest to him in his military. There's a lot to set up and a lot to pay off, and only about 75 pages to do it with. Godspeed, comic. So where are we gonna start off? I dare you to guess. That's right, with the Metalbending Students. Man, these guys find a way to worm their way into just about every story, huh? They're helping Toph do some construction, I guess, for this building on the extraction site, and I guess they're still not super great at metal bending because they cause an avalanche that nearly kills everyone, but Toph's got them. So now we take an entire page to explain why the Metalbending Students aren't excited to be down here in the South, and hell, I ain't really that thrilled to see you guys either. They're still just walking jokes, mostly cowardly, Linkin Park, and well, Penga hasn't been particularly bratty yet, but give her a second. They're not liking this whole construction bending thing, and Toph's like, fuck man, I've never done it either, but we're metal benders out here, we do it all. But Penga, being reasonable, not bratty, says, okay, but building all this metal stuff on top of snow is some psycho shit if we don't have waterbenders to help. And Toph's like, yeah, well, the Northerners aren't allowed to help anymore, and the only Southern waterbender there is at all hates the idea of this place, so we're on our own. I guess Paku still counts as a Northerner with this logic, that makes sense. But Melina gets to stick around, I guess, even though she feels the uneasiness in the air her presence is generating. Despite apparently a lot of the South being on board with the extraction project, there is a vocal minority that Gilak got through to, and they want nothing more than her out of their country. Transition to Paku and the other only two waterbenders in the South at all. Paku is trying to impart a lesson, but these two kids are still insisting that they're not waterbenders. But Paku's got a trick up his sleeve. He brings in Aang, and to a lesser extent Katara, but Aang's the real wow factor here for the kids. They are stunned. They're also kind of stoked on Katara, mostly just for knowing Aang, but still. So for some reason, Katara now presses the fact that these two are waterbenders. Like, now will you tell us? Like her and Aang walking into the room was going to be the tipping point for some reason, and I guess it is. The two girls explain that their mother gave them the rule of never showing anyone their waterbending, or else the Fire Nation would come and take them away. Oh, that makes sense. But despite them giving up this crucial info, the kids still refuse to waterbend and take off. This scene was very, very odd. Aang says that didn't go how he expected, and yeah, me neither, Aang. The writing was kinda all over the place. Enter Hakoda, chieftain of the Southern Water Tribe. You may have heard of him. He's up and around now, came to see what was up at the school. Paku sends Katara and Aang on their way with Hakoda. In the meantime, he'll try to keep getting through to his two students. Some time has passed because Hakoda is walking now and describes it as feeling stronger than he has in a long while. Momo finds an apple to snack on somehow, and where the hell did you find that around here? Hakoda reminisces on the idea of Team Avatar both ending the war and ending the threat of Gilak, and he says he realizes that in Team Avatar's cooperation, they've become stronger than anyone. That's what the South still needs, cooperation with the other nations. But Katara asks her father if he doesn't think he's being naive. Man, Katara's really got a mouth on her lately. She even repeats the cheap imitation line that Gilak delivered last comic, but it's Hakoda's turn to double down. He says this is happening. He's already sent invitations to the Earth Kingdom and Fire Nation in their meeting tonight, and he thinks both Katara and Aang should be there. And yeah, there they are in their giant flying whatchamacallits, but the arrival of the other nations only stokes the protesters more, feeling like they're being encroached on even harder. And yeah, here they are, the heads of state, Quay and Zuko. The team's all here. Zuko, you don't have an entourage of Imperial firebenders, you just have two regular firebenders with you. Quick haha, it's cold joke, and Quay is a wimp, and the two noticing the protesters, and Sokka finds them. Damn, Sokka and Zuko got a friendship like that? I never really thought of their friendship being the hugging type. Stop saying buddy. Despite the reunion, the protesters are loud, and they've made Zuko and Quay's arrival an uneasy one. And the crowd is even starting to turn on Sokka, despite his folk hero status. Shot of the outside of a prison. Shot of Gilak inside the prison. He's heard about the conference with the other nations going on. Man, these comics really do like to do that. Prisoners just hearing rumors so they have information they shouldn't have. They did it with Ozai too, to the point where I thought he might have an informant in the prison system, but that idea never went anywhere. Okay, he does have that lady who gave him the key that has access to his cell, but still, it's like a pretty lazy way to write this. Gilak's still on his turn to the dark side shit, but this guard isn't having it. He says we can achieve Hakoda's plans without sewering the South. Gilak says, I have two surprises for you. I can 1, leave this cell with this key I have, and 2, punch you. I learned this whole punching thing from some kid in my army. Very effective. Old chi blocking man is the first on the breakout list. Turncoat lady, I guess, helped Gilak get his sword back before they took to busting people out. Hakoda's meeting seems to be going well. He talks about creating a bitchin' new harbor and setting up embassies in the other nations. He's got big plans. And the classic dichotomy of Katara versus Sokka is still here. Sokka's ecstatic and Katara's pretty bummed. This is gonna have to get somewhere eventually. Across all 3 chapters, these two have just held these opinions alongside one another, and that's fine, but the books keep bringing it up. Like, okay, sorry, is this part of the story, or are they just gonna keep having these moments and not do anything with it? Hakoda asks the room what they think, and Zuko says, hell yeah, the Fire Nation really mess you few guys up over the last century. We should probably help you get back on your feet. Quay, however, is not so eager. The Earth Kingdom has a lot of stuff going on too, but he says if he told his advisors the South was pushing towards civilization, which Katara immediately takes offense to. She even pulls out a pretty good chirp saying that the South Pole looks pretty great compared to the outer ring of Ba Sing Se. And it's like, okay, cool, Katara, you get to be mad about every slight against the South, but that's really all the comic is letting you do at the moment, and nearly all the past moments in this 3-part book. You're almost turning into Azula in The Search. When it was Aang dealing with this kind of dilemma in the Rift, the book really gave him some scenes for reflection, seeing different viewpoints and learning. But Katara just keeps being mad about the same things over and over. It's kind of getting boring. Oh, well, that awkward moment is cut short because this guard runs in and says Gilak and his army have, oh god, I've been boomeranged. Oh man, it's Gilak and his 2 men that are 7.5 feet tall and others, and he's the one that threw the boomerang. Man, I didn't realize Gilak was a boomerang lord as well. This guy is formidable. Hakoda is surprised to see Lirin, her name's Lirin by the way, amongst Gilak's ranks. She says, no, yeah, I'm on his side now. Gilak's right. And Gilak's like, I know, right? Zuko, never one to not throw the first fire fist, initiates the fight, and Aang is not far behind. I don't care if you're 8 feet tall, you get fire blasted and wind blasted all the same. Slurs are being thrown at Zuko, and blades are being thrown at everyone else. Well, blades at Zuko too, actually. Sokka is disarmed, and it all comes down to one throw. One throw of a boomerang, which the 8.5 foot tall man confidently announces he has dodged, despite growing up in a culture where boomerang combat is common. Anyway, the 9 foot tall man is crushed by a chandelier. The other 9.5 foot tall guy is dealing with Toph, who has come up with all sorts of hand-based attacks, it turns out. Hakoda demands the guests be protected, but this guard says what we're all thinking, the guests are holding their own pretty good. He says, no, not those guests, our other guests, Quay and Melina, get them out of here. But oh god, the cavalry comes flying through the windows, including the sibling chi blockers and old man chi blocker. And guess what they do? I'll give you 2 full seconds to guess. Yeah, you got it. Hakoda stands in front of Quay and Melina, but Gilak isn't here for them. He's here for Hakoda. The only solution Gilak sees to this problem now is Hakoda's death and the rise of a new leader, a stronger one, a leader like him that knows how to punch. And he's got a lot of knockout power apparently because Hakoda's out cold and over his shoulder just like that. Aang and Katara failed to stop the entire group of them leaving out the same door somehow? What? What do you mean he's moving too fast? Look at this guy. You can't keep up with the enormous 50-year-old man, Aang? You're the Avatar, I thought? Okay, well, he's gonna do some avataring now, I guess. That's good. So now Aang flies as well. Okay, it makes a little more sense since he's an airbender and everything, and I wouldn't be mad at the sort of water spout flying air variation we saw him do in the Avatar state once, but he's doing like a horizontal cyclone. It's basically just flying. Like, I don't know what to call this other than flying. I guess Aang doesn't need that glider anymore. Gilak is launched into the air by Katara doing an earthbending move, and Hakoda is caught and flown to safety by Aang, who is flying. Katara tries to run after the apparently still fleeing Gilak, but she just runs. You're on snow and ice. You have a laundry list of ways you can choose to move faster. Why are you just running? Apparently Gilak is crazy fast for his age and stature because he's gone. He's not even within eyesight. And he's not a bender with any way to move faster than a run. So we all regroup after that whole kerfuffle, and Zuko notices something wrong. Literally everyone left the room to go save Hakoda, leaving Quay completely unguarded. Wow, that was a big mental collapse, guys. Yeah, no, they have Quay now. What is happening in this comic? Big blank space in the comic, so I imagine that means time has passed. Hakoda is having a lay down. It seems like the squad is out looking for Quay to no avail. They track them to some tunnels, but it's a maze that'll take maybe weeks to search them all. That being said though, knowing what we know of Toph's abilities, shouldn't she be able to figure out where they are pretty easy? She felt the people Hama was keeping prisoners screaming underground, and that was miles and miles away from where they were, and she wasn't even trying to do that. If she gave some effort and they're still down there, couldn't she just find them? I guess not, because we're taking a break, but oh, here comes the plot hawk to save the day. It's from fucking, what's his name, Gilak. He wants to make a trade. Quay's life for Hakoda. Seems fair, this guy's pretty reasonable. They want to meet at the Bridge of No Return, a rickety old rope bridge. Is this comic serious right now? We're doing the rope bridge thing? Okay, comic, you got it, I'm down. The terms of the meeting go like this. The chi blockers will cross the bridge and all the benders must willingly be chi blocked. A show of good faith and basically forcing them to lay down their weapons. Once that is done, Hakoda and Quay will cross alone. Any funny business and Gilak will cut the bridge. Zuko says he's just gotta cut the bridge anyway, right? Am I crazy? I used to be evil, bro. I know how these guys think. Well, this is a pickle we find ourselves in, huh, guys? Not only are all the world leaders gonna die, we don't even like the first part about being willfully chi blocked. Forget that. So we need a plan. Sokka, you're up. So now we're at the Bridge of No Return. And why do you have that? You can just fly. You don't have to worry about hanging onto your stick anymore. Apparently they did some behind the scenes stuff because Sokka asks if everything's ready and Aang says, yeah, we're all good. Despite the incredibly tense situation we're about to find ourselves in, Katara still finds the time to be down in the dumps about the South Pole not being the same as it was when she was a kid. Katara, I know you're having a rough time over here, but can we focus focus up a little? Sokka actually argues an interesting point here, though. He says, listen, we don't actually know what a healthy, thriving South Pole is. Our grandmother doesn't even know. We were at war and impoverished, basically, for a century. What if this South Pole that you're idealizing was just the South Pole suffering, and you got used to calling that suffering home? Sokka says it a little more bluntly than I did, but that's basically the gist. And that's a really interesting viewpoint, Sokka. Wow, this book really needed something like that. Katara doesn't get a chance to respond because Gilak is here, and it's time to do this whole convoluted trade-off. The chi blockers come over, and I guess the plan does start with them being chi blocked, whatever the plan is. Everyone gets talked down to, too. You know, Dirt Girl, Ashmaker, just calling a waterbender with a mean intonation. Aang gets it pretty good, though. They're pretty respectful. They even chi block Sokka, who is thrilled to be considered worthy of chi blocking. It's like the opposite moment of Toph not taking him seriously in the chase. Well, alright, Team Avatar's down for the count. Time to get this show on the road. A tense crossing of the rope bridge from both sides, and Quay is characteristically sheepish here. I still can't believe we're doing this rope bridge thing. Like, on paper, it seems like a great idea for an Avatar action scene, but the way it's set up, like with the villain demanding the final scene take place at it, it just feels so corny. Zuko was correct in his thinking. Gilak isn't gonna miss this opportunity to kill two of his enemies, even though I don't really think Earth King Quay is really his enemy by any stretch. But Melina disarms him, and Gilak didn't have all the information on his enemies, it seems, because the Metalbending Students are here. Of course, they've come to save the day once again. They're pretty confident too, gleefully saying they're about to rock Gilak and his troops. Well, that's a little bit of character development, I guess. They went from being totally worthless to just second-guessing themselves into being very confident. While that's great, I still don't think any of these guys really qualify to me as characters. But they're non-characters that can metal bend, so they have a use, all according to plan. And the tables have turned entirely. Turns out the gang was playing possum. They can move and bend. Sokka says he drew up some plans for chainmail armor, which was whipped up pretty quickly, courtesy of the Beifong Metal Bending Academy. But you're telling me that the chi blockers, the people that are very aware of how the human body works and probably feels while chi blocking somebody, just didn't notice? They didn't hurt their fingers? Gilak's little army has been defeated on both sides of the bridge, leaving just him to fight it out, and he, for some reason, goes completely brain dead and charges at Hakoda and Quay on the bridge. It looks like his blade is made from bone, which is why he hasn't been re-disarmed by the metal benders, I presume. So why doesn't he just cut the bridge and complete his goal regardless, right? So Gilak, in his psychotic lapse with reality, goes into the middle of the bridge to light it on fire while he's on it. Okay, Melina gives chase and tackles him, and Zuko, seeing this, thinks there's only two world leaders on that burning rope bridge, I gotta get in there too. Zuko uses his comic exclusive ability he unlocked to put out the fire and save the bridge. For a moment, the bridge snaps anyway. Oh, the entire world minus the Northern Water Tribe have just lost all of their kings, chieftains, lords, etc. It's gonna be fucking anarchy. Everyone hangs onto the bridge as it hangs off the cliff wall. Of course, it wouldn't be a rope bridge scene without this happening. Zuko grabs Quay and performs non-combat enhanced flight. Like, this isn't a rocket jump, he didn't have any momentum, and he flew directly up a cliff wall while carrying someone. Zuko can fly now as well. Could you imagine how different Avatar The Last Airbender would have been if all the characters could fly? Zuko and Azula just zooming around in the crystal catacombs, Hama and Katara darting through trees as they try to bloodbend each other. It would be an entirely different show. It would be worse. So we've got a rescue mission now. The bridge is gonna fall for real soon. Toph's gonna see what she can do, and Katara and Aang are gonna ice ladder their way down, I guess. Katara, okay, now it's getting to be annoying. Who would call their boyfriend sweetie in this situation? While their father is dangling above a chasm, it would be more like, Aang, let's go! So down they go, and for some reason, Toph seems to be having a hard time holding the bridge up by these rocks. Why? You performed raw endurance feats way more impressive than this. You held the library up for what felt like 10 minutes. You held the entire unstable iron mine up long enough for Sokka to fly to Yudao and back. What's so hard about this? But the bridge gives way, and Aang whips out the glider that just isn't called for anymore. He catches the three of them and is holding on to all of them somehow, even though his grip is failing. Yeah, that makes sense. You're holding up like 600 pounds of frightened, writhing people. But Gilak says, fuck it, I'm at least taking this northerner with me. But Melina seems to just let him drop, which is badass. Hell yeah, Melina. And I believe this is just a Disney death, just a fall from a great height. I think he's done. Then, oh man, this is really hokey. Aang's losing his grip, so Melina says he can't hold us both, so she just lets go. It's so cliched, man. This is painful. Also, what are you doing up here, Zuko? You can fly. I saw it. Get down there and help. And so can you, Katara. Fucking get out there and help. That is what Katara does, actually. She flies out and catches her dad's girlfriend, despite not liking her at all very much. No one can tell me Katara can't fly ever again. She literally just had a Superman moment. It's not a graceful landing, but Melina is saved. And yeah, you can give her thanks and all, sure, but shouldn't you get off this nearly physics-defying little spit of ice you've got to stand on before the pleasantries, you know? So fast forward to the next day, Sokka and Katara Katara are standing in front of a circle of rocks, and Katara begins to speak with some gravitas. She's starting to realize that a lot of her inability to accept the changes in the South stem from not being able to go home to where she was with her mom. It's a new home where her mom never was. She and Sokka are visiting their mother's grave. She talks about her proudest, most courageous moments, saving Melina yesterday, saving Aang in the Crystal Catacombs, even fighting Azula. She says that is a courage that her mother passed on to her. The same courage that made Kaya tell Yon Ra that she was the last waterbender in the South and not her daughter. So things in the South will continue to change, but what won't change is that no matter what, Katara still has her mother. Aang and the two waterbending kids look on and are invited over. Katara tells Shura and Siku the story of her mom and how she sacrificed herself to keep Katara safe. But she didn't just save Katara, she kept Southern waterbending alive, and Katara figures that's why their mother sent them here too, to help keep Southern waterbending alive. And that seems to be just the push the two needed to share their waterbending with everyone else. That's pleasant. I'm sort of struggling to find the through line on these kids' story and Katara's though. They're all Southern waterbenders whose mothers did everything they could to keep them safe, and because of that, they share this bond. But for some reason, it feels so surface level. Like there's not really much to read into past that. I must be missing something here. I've been thinking for like 20 minutes. I don't know, man. Maybe you guys can help me out. Back at Grand's now, all the older folks are sitting around the fire, and it turns out Team Avatar wanted to cook for them. They've got all the cultural meals: steamed tofu, spicy fire noodles, braised turtle duck. Wait, where did you find turtle duck down here in the South? And even northern-style seaweed stew. Katara seems to be opening up slowly. She's even happily seated right next to Melina as everyone sits down for the meal. The cooperation that Hakoda had hoped for has been achieved, at least in this small way. Wow, okay, North and South Part 3. This one was kind of a mess. Like I said, not a lot was set up going into this, and you can really feel it with how wonky everything feels. Gilak's weird cinematic showdown on the rope bridge being the whole crux of the chapter feels really cheesy, and there's not really a lot of room for anything to happen character-wise because the first 15 pages of the book are setting up that Hakoda's half alright now, and Zuko and Quay are coming to town, and then Zuko and Quay are now in town. And then we've got to do a lot of legwork to get into the position where we can do the corny bridge scene. The pacing is really weird, and Gilak is a really nothing villain to me. Like, his point in a vacuum makes sense if you ignore a bunch of stuff, and that his whole motivation is literally he saw the Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom governments and liked them better. Him turning the layman never really achieved anything. It could have been cooler if a proper civil war in the South broke out, but Gilak never really felt like he had more than 10 people that could fight on his side. And who were those two Bizarro World Sokka and Katara kids? I thought it was gonna go somewhere with them, like, oh, they're a pair of Southern Water Tribe siblings that views differ so drastically from Katara and Sokka, and there would be some kind of dialogue there, but no, they're just some henchmen with faces. I didn't have a point where I talked much about the themes of this book, because there aren't really any. We touch on ideas of immigration and xenophobia and even grief, but it's all just that, only touched on. We never delve into the ideas at all. Our characters are never themselves metaphors for anything the book is trying to say, which is what I've always praised these comics for, having big ideas and trying to explore them. This book didn't really do that. Katara was sort of a symbol for the South being unwelcoming to the North, but once again, it was so surface level. And yeah, let's get into that. Even the thing with Katara not liking Melina basically just boils down to Katara saying the same things over and over and being touchy about the subject. We never get any further insight into how she's feeling until she seems like she's already on the way past the problem when she's talking to her mom. I really thought Katara was gonna get more of a spotlight here, and while she was in a lot of panels and had a lot of word bubbles, I don't think it really accomplished much. For what it is, that being an Avatar comic, it's passable. I don't think any of them have been bad per se, but there is a tier list forming in my mind, and this one is just above the search, and you can probably tell how I feel about it based on only saying the search. Patron shoutouts, if you want to see 2 brand new videos from me, you can support me on Patreon for just a few bucks. Link, as always, is in the description below the video. Biggest shoutouts of all go to my top patrons, Agent Rhino, who found the real Godzilla and learned his screaming technique, and I don't think personally anyone should have that much power. Danger Stranger, who just owns a pocket watch. It doesn't have any cinematic or dramatic significance, making him the most unique pocket watch owner on the planet. Gift Misher Von PTA, who was bitten by a radioactive cockroach and now can live without their head. Omega Fighter, who built a cardboard spaceship as a kid and unwittingly created the first cardboard warp drive engine. Sean Martin, who I saw do a double kickflip over a bolt of lightning, I swear I did. Stephanie Riches, who donated blood once, and it turns out she has an unknown blood type that can be used as rocket fuel. Thomas Lautenbach, who fell out of a plane, but luckily he landed on a mattress factory. Unfortunately, it was run by wolves and cobras. Tiago Nascimento, whose dreams actually affect the real world, but it all happens out in the middle of the Gobi Desert somewhere, I think. Tis Just Lee, who didn't insist on being player 1 even when it was at their own house, earning him a Medal of Valor. Barumda, who anytime they pick up a knife, those scientists have to put the doomsday clock 15 seconds ahead until it's put back down. That's how dangerous they are. And Whitrow, who deadlifted a beach beluga whale and carried it back into the ocean. I saw it with my goddamn eyes, I saw it. And of course, my god overanalyzers, Two Boots Are Beat, Alex Rodriguez Flores, Andrew Watchert, Austin Gallup, Daniel Anderson, Devoted Duke221, Dizzy Payne, Dominic Saint, Distant, Aaron Grace, It's Carton, Jackson, John Ajaka, Justin Fletchall, Mr. Freese, Nate Clone, Nicholas Abbott, Peter Bayron, Phil, Pogger White, Reese, Rocket Mist, Ryan Maxwell, Samuel Vanderplatt, Super Snipper, Turt Bobs, and the Bareface. Next up, you know what? Let's just fucking finish off these comics, why don't we?